King Daniel Gorringe, welcome back to Sound the Siren. I'm Xavier.
I'm Dylan. Welcome back to the round 7 review and the round 8 tips, and the fourth episode, I believe, of where we review the previous round and then tip and discuss the games. We've got a bit of a new feature here today. We've got the certainty cards. We don't actually have the cards, but what Xavier and I have put together is we're going to tally the number of certainties we get wrong, and at the end of the year, whoever has more will have to do a forfeit, which we'll decide upon in the next few weeks. So we've got a good round of footy coming up, but first we'll have a look at the previous games. Anything else to say, Zabe?
Nothing from me, Dylan.
All right, so we'll get straight into it. The first game at Optus Stadium, a huge crowd, Geelong versus Collingwood. I was hoping for a better game. The stars being De Goey and Treloar. De Goey obviously out for 6 weeks now with that hand surgery, a huge loss for the Pies. And Geelong showed signs of coming back, but in the end, the Pies were too strong.
Yeah, obviously you tipped Geelong, I think it was, and I tipped Collingwood last week. I had them winning. Lucky for me, they got up. Good tip, I guess. But yeah, obviously De Goey's a big loss for them. 6 weeks, I think you said. Yeah, that's going to be bad with obviously Sidebottom and Jeremy Howe also still out. Hopefully they can stay in the finals race and get some of their players back and make a big push into the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they do make the finals, they'll have a few players come back. As you said, obviously, I don't think Howe's out for the full season. Maybe he is, but if not, they'll have a really great run in the finals. The Friday night game, the Bulldogs versus Bombers. I did tip the Bombers, and to a lot of people's surprise, the Dogs were fast out the gates, and Tim English is emerging as an absolute star. 204 Supercoach for the big ruckman, and he's only a young fella as well.
Yeah, I think both of us tipped Essendon last week, but I did text you before the game into our group chat. I said, I don't normally change my tip, but I'm going to have to change my tip to the Bulldogs. I don't know why. I just something came over me, and I thought maybe they could get up. And yeah, obviously, as you said, Tim English was very good. McRae and Bontempelli were good for them again, but yeah, Tim English was clearly the star of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this next game, I don't know if you're happy about your change tip. You changed to the Giants. The Lions did manage to get over the line. I thought the game would be a bit closer. The Lions kind of ran away, but it was still thoroughly enjoyable. Zach Bailey, the true standout, and Jared Lyons really putting games together and still in some great form.
I was close to texting you to change this tip as well, but I didn't because I didn't want to change 2 tips in 2 nights. Bit unfortunate for me, but I think GWS, they were missing. Obviously, Ward was missing again. Toby Green was a late out. But they got Tim Taranto back in, and he probably wasn't his best. Obviously, he won the best and fairest last year. Didn't win it this year, but won't win it this year probably. But good win for Brisbane against one of my flag fancies.
Sydney versus Gold Coast. Sydney continue with their struggles. Isaac Rankine once again impressive. That first acrobatic goal. I know you saw it, just the chip off the ground. And Hugh Greenwood was the best on ground. What a performance from him. You know, their pickups have been extremely handy from them, all the way dating back to Lockie Weller and then Brandon Ellis, who's been handy for them as well.
Hugh Greenwood, he cost me one of my Supercoach games because I don't have him, but my opponent did, and he scored over 140, which actually cost me the game, which hurts me a little bit. But good win for Gold Coast. They're still in the top 8, I believe. Yeah, I think Sydney, obviously, Josh Kennedy and Isaac Keeney, that's got to hurt them a little bit. But yeah, good win for Gold Coast. Just on the Lockie Weller one as well, you'd have to. So I think if I was the Gold Coast, I'd rather have Andrew Brayshaw than Lockie Weller, but played well on the weekend.
Yeah, we'll get to Andrew Brayshaw in a second. The night game, Richmond versus North Melbourne. What was shaping up to be an alright contest, in the end, it just wasn't it, really. North Melbourne, they're just going to have to review their playing style because they were awful on Saturday. Sorry to say that. And Darcy, who's previously been on the podcast. And now with Zeeble out and Simpkin hurt, they'll have to push through what seems to be a long year awaiting for them.
Yeah, I think I've said many times I don't think the North Melbourne list is that good. I think they've got a few good players around, though. They've got, obviously, Ben Brown, who's struggling. But then they're 2 of their best players in Zeeble and Cunnington. They've brought them both in and then had them get injured during the games. And I think probably of them are the wrong decision. They made the wrong decision 2 weeks in a row. And yeah, Simpkin obviously got injured again. He's been starring for them this year, which was good for my super coach because the said person had him. But yeah, I think Richmond have gotten pretty lucky. Obviously, they've had all their injuries, but in the weeks that the people have been injured, they faced Melbourne and then Sydney and then
North Melbourne.
North Melbourne. So yeah, I think they got pretty lucky there, and they're going to start getting some players back and probably make the top 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this next game, we've kind of sped through the previous 6, or 5 rather. Carlton versus Port Adelaide. What turned out to be the best game I've ever seen since the West Coast versus Port Adelaide final when Shuey kicked the goal after the siren. I don't understand how Port blew their chances though. You know, Dixon from 20 out straight in front. Gray missed from a gettable angle, but worst of all, Todd Marshall missed from the top of the square. But luckily they had the saviour, big Robbie Gray, kicked a blinder after the siren. Save, how are you feeling after this game? There's some positives though. Sammy Walsh back in form and great mark. The courage,
yeah,
unbelievable.
Heartbroken, devastated. Some of the words I'd use to describe how I felt after that. Yeah, shocked. Obviously, we did well to get into the contest, but obviously we had our hearts kicked in the final seconds. Yeah, we had a lot of mistakes as well. Levi Casbolt missed one from almost the top of the square. There was the Harry Mackay free kick at the top of the square as well. The Patrick Cripps push in the back and the Patrick Cripps holding the ball in the last quarter. We kicked it down Tom Jonas's throat. We needed to kill that ball. Then they slingshotted it back and kicked the goal. But I think that game can't be overstated how important that was for Carlton, because if we had won that, we would have been in the 8. North Melbourne this week. We've got Hawthorn in the coming weeks, as well as who's the other one we've got? We got the bye and West Coast. But I think North Melbourne and Hawthorn would have been winnable games, and we would have seen ourselves 1, maybe even 2 games clear in the top 8. From there, I can't really see us missing the 8 because, as I said, Hawthorn, Sydney, Gold Coast still to come, Fremantle and Adelaide. I can't really see us losing many of those games. So I would have seen us in the top 8, but obviously heartbroken. Robbie Gray kicked a ripping goal at the end of the game, and maybe might cost us a spot in the top 8 at the end of the year. But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, they'll review the tape and they'll go through what they should have done in that last minute. I think it's just a bit of inexperience kicking in from the young ones. But, yeah, as you said, great performance by them. They did deserve to win, but Port, Robbie Gray broke your heart, and that'll go down as game of the year.
I think Michael Gibbons took a mark with about 30 seconds to go. He'd been pretty good all year he's been, but he just needed to waste down the clock a little bit and hit one more uncontested mark, and it would have been game over. But I think prematurely he went down the line and kicked it down Jonas's throat, which, yeah, obviously led to our loss.
Yeah, absolutely. The rest of the Sunday games, a bit underwhelming. Melbourne versus Hawthorn, and I did tip Melbourne. And just like the Kangas and Swans, the Hawks are playing some terrible footy at the moment, as quoted by Jonathan Brown, who said they're horrible to watch. And I can't deny it, they weren't the greatest. Max Gawn, an absolute star, and he should be your main Supercoach ruckman, Zave.
Yeah, as I said before, I tipped Melbourne. I think their list is underrated. Obviously, Gawn, a star, and Oliver played very well again. But yeah, Hawthorn is in some horrible form. Ever since they beat Richmond a few weeks ago, they played horribly, and obviously on the weekend it was not a good sight for them. I'm sure their club will have some questions over the week that they have to answer. I think perhaps their captaincy option, that's come into question already. I know that. Alistair Clarkson's come under the firing line, so I guess we'll have to wait and see how all that folds out.
Yeah, Jeff Kennett did say that he would be there for 2 more years, I think. But if they keep playing like they are at the moment, they'll have to figure something out. The derby, West Coast versus Fremantle, I thought Freo held up pretty well until the last 5 minutes of the second quarter rather. Josh Kennedy went berserk, and I've said it for a long time. Brad Shepherd, an absolute gem.
Yeah, Josh Kennedy obviously won the, I think it's the John Worsfold medal.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think.
Well,
that might be their best and fairest. I'm not sure, but obviously he won the best on ground medal, kicking the 4 goals for, I think it was. Gaff was good. um, yeah, good game for them. As you said, Fremantle held up well into the last quarter. So, but West Coast should have won. I said that they were going to smash them. I thought it would be a little bit more, but 30-point win is still pretty good.
I've just got some news here, which I'll get into in the next round. I think it's interesting to share. So the last game, St Kilda versus Adelaide, a bit of an ugly win for us, 23-point win in the end. I was scared for a moment in the last quarter, but the umpires came out and said they made many mistakes, which I think was a bit obvious. I don't want to get into too much of that, but there were a few questionable decisions. And Jack Steele, his best career game, 26 posies, 6 tackles, and I think 13 clearances off the top of my head.
Mm.
But I think St Kilda play better against good teams, so this week will be interesting.
Yeah, I think wasn't actually the best performance from St Kilda in my opinion, but they scrapped. They got over the line ugly. They got the 23-point win. I think maybe a bit better for them than perhaps the game actually showed, but good win for them, I guess, and they're in the top 8 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the round 7 review, and we'll just get straight into the round 8 tips because the first game, Gold Coast versus Western Bulldogs. This is the news I wanted to share. The Bulldogs' former vice captain Lockie Hunter just announced that he's going to be ruled out of selection for tomorrow's game due to personal reasons. So take that into account. Yeah, Callum Porter playing his first game as well. But I'm going to tip Gold Coast. I can't tip the Dogs back-to-back weeks. You know, one week they lose by 52 against your Blue Boys. The next they beat the Bombers by 42. So definitely an interesting game. Rankin looking to get his first win at Metricon, and I think they can maintain some form and pull two together.
Yeah, obviously Callum Porter from a similar area to us, so it's big for our area. But I'm going to have to go with the Dogs. I think their best footy is better than a lot of teams, and I think perhaps the game against Carlton was a bit of a lapse in concentration, perhaps. Obviously not good for them, but they were very good last week. They've been good before. I think Bontempelli's a star, and I'm not sure that the Gold Coast midfield has the answers for them.
Absolutely. The Friday night game is GWS versus Richmond. If you told me this game was on at the start of the year, I would have said game of the year. But GWS in some poor form, Richmond struggling against some good sides. So I think, I don't know who I'm going to tip. I'll go with the Tigers just because GWS, they've lost to the Lions at home. They lost to Port Adelaide at home. So they're struggling to put two and two together. So for that reason, I'll go with the Tigers. And I know who you're going for, obviously.
I'm going to pick GWS. Obviously, I never pick Richmond, but this one, I seriously believe that GWS should win this one. They've been under the microscope. They've got the hot water under them. But they're a good team. I think they should bounce back. Obviously, Richmond still have a lot of outs, and GWS need to really pull a win through, maybe 2 wins, 3 wins in the next few weeks to keep their top 8 chances and their top 4 chances alive.
Yeah, absolutely. On the Saturday afternoon, we've got the early game, Carlton versus North Melbourne. And I'm going to put this out there. This is my certainty card. I think Carlton will absolutely demolish the Kangas. They were immaculate last week and deserve the win, and they'll be back with a vengeance this week.
I think you must have been reading my notes or something, Dylan, because I was going to put the certainty on this one as well. Carlton obviously been in some good form in the last few weeks, even though we lost last week. Just got to wipe my tears. But yeah, hopefully we can get the win. North Melbourne's been in some really bad form. Obviously, I think Zeebel's going to be out. Cunnington's probably out again. Simpkin, as you said, was sore. But yeah, hopefully Carlton can get across the line. I did have a quick stat regarding the Blues. In our scratch match, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I saw a fan page posted that Paddy Dow had 35 touches, 30 of which were contested, took 11 marks, 14 tackles, 17 clearances, 10 inside 50s, and kicked 2 goals. So that's his first full game back this season, I believe, but I'm not sure if they'll leave him in the scratch matches for a few more weeks just to get him fresh, or whether those stats will be too much to resist and put him into the best 22.
Jeez, yeah, that's interesting. That's a lot of contested possessions. So
Yeah.
they'll consider him for sure. His kicking was the only thing that was really letting him down, if I can say letting him down. So yeah,
I think that's 100% right, though. But Obviously, he's still young. I think once the game starts slowing down for him a little bit, he'll start taking his time more and hitting more targets. But I've watched the highlights of his scratch match, and they didn't quite look up to the same standard as he did. And he was shrugging tackles, moving left and right, and hitting targets. So very good for him, and hopefully he can get back into our team.
Now, the hardest game of the round, in my opinion, to tip at the SCG, we've got Sydney versus Hawthorn. I think I'm going to go with Sydney. I had Hawthorn tipped, but I'm going to switch it because, I think both teams will want to bounce back, but just because it's at the SCG, I'll go with the Swans.
I'm going to go with the Hawks. I think both teams have been in horrible form, but I actually really like Sydney, but I think Heaney and Kennedy both being out, as well as Franklin, as I've said. He's been out for a while, maybe not even playing this season, but those three are all big outs for them. And I think Hawthorn have better football to show. I think O'Meara and Tom Mitchell, as well as some of the other players, can start for them, and hopefully they can get the win.
I think you've persuaded me. I think I might go back to the Hawks. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Now on Saturday night, we have Port Adelaide versus St Kilda at the Adelaide Oval. And you know who I'm going to tip, St Kilda, but I'm not very confident at all. It'll be a tough task. Port in great form, obviously, but a hard game to tip. Your thoughts on that?
I'm going to tip St Kilda as well, with no confidence. I think Port Adelaide, obviously, on top of the ladder. I think St Kilda have some good football in them, but obviously when they're bad, they're very bad. I know they were very good against Carlton the other week, but I think they can get the win. I think Port Adelaide's list is very overrated. I don't really see them being better than any of like Collingwood, Richmond, Brisbane, GWS, Geelong. I think all of those, West Coast as well. I think all of those teams and their lists are comfortably better than Port. But obviously they're at the top of the ladder, so it's a bit of an out there pick for me. No confidence, but I'm going with the Saints.
Yeah, I think on the Footy Tips website, I think it's like 5% to St Kilda, 95% to Port Adelaide. So you're one of the 5%, so am I, Zaid. I'll stick with that. Adelaide versus Essendon on the Sunday, the early game. I've got Essendon, obviously, I've spoken about Adelaide, my personal thoughts on them. Not the greatest at the moment. Even at the Adelaide Oval with 30,000 rather, I think it's 15,000 fans. The Dons should get it done. A bit of an obstacle last week with the Doggies, but they should be right back on track.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Essendon as well. I think, what was it? Essendon only has 2 losses for the season, I think. They've played one less game than everyone else. Adelaide yet to have a win, so I think they really need this one. I'd like to see them win, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, that's fair. West Coast versus Collingwood. What's shaping up to be one of the games of the year, I believe, at Optus Stadium, and I've got the Eagles. They're my second favourite team, if you can have a second favourite team. I've always loved Josh Kennedy since back in the day. And Collingwood missing a few players, which I think will be costly for them. So I've got the Eagles.
Yeah, I agree. I've got the Eagles. Obviously, their home ground. Collingwood, as I said before, missing a few players, but I think West Coast can get up. Big game for them as well. Obviously, they haven't been as good as they'd like to be this season. Only positioned 8th. If they can win this one, maybe they can move up the ladder a little bit and keep their top 4 chances alive.
Absolutely. Sunday night, we've got Melbourne versus Brisbane. And I'm tipping Brisbane, but I do think Melbourne could be a contender for the finals. But they hit a roadblock this week. They've put some good games together in recent weeks, but the Lions, obviously, amazing form, taking down Port, GWS and others. Hopefully a bounce-back game from Lachie Neale, who played well, but, faced the tag of De Boer, who's one of the better taggers in the competition, but he'll be free this week.
Yeah, I've said many times before, I'm a big fan of Melbourne. I think they've got a really good list, and I think they can make finals. Obviously, Wiedemann's been very good since coming in. They got Tom McDonald to come back in. I think he might be coming back in this week. Obviously, injured his eye. But in saying all of that, I'm going to have to tip Brisbane. I think I've said before, I think them and GWS are the 2 best teams in the league. But I think Brisbane should win this one.
Just on Tom McDonald, do you think they will continue to put him in the forward line? Because he has been lacking a bit of form up there.
I'd hope so, because I know, obviously, the year before Jesse Hogan, before he left, he was the number 2 defender was coming to him, and I think he kicked about 50 goals in about 17 games. So, yeah, he's obviously got some huge potential in the forward line. I think he's a very good player in the back line as well. But I think if Wiedemann can start taking that first defender and Tom McDonald can start beating up on the second defenders, I think he can obviously kick goals. And Melbourne's a team that's struggled to put scores on the scoreboard, but I think they can. I think Tom McDonald can work out in the forward line for them.
The final game of the round, Geelong versus Fremantle. I've got Geelong. I think they have a better skill set with Dangerfield and Selwood back in form. Freo have been impressive lately, though, even though they lost by 5 goals. I still think they put some reasonable football together, but it's a tough task to beat the Catters, even with 30,000 fans behind you.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cats as well. Obviously, Fremantle, I don't think they'll have Fife again, but Geelong has been really good. As I've said before, I don't really rate Fremantle all that much, especially with Fife out. But yeah, I'm going to go with Geelong for this one.
So, Zave, that wraps it up for this week. And then, so we've got a 1-day break in between the Monday and the Tuesday. So we'll discuss what we're doing there. I think we might just have to continue going round by round, even if we just miss a game, because 20 days of straight football and then the NBA playoffs. So what a month of sport we have coming up.
Sporting marathon for sure.
Absolutely.
Maybe a Sound the Siren marathon as well.
Sound the Siren marathon. I think we're going to have 3 uploads in the week coming. So watch out for that. Anything else to say, Zave?
Nothing from me.
That just about wraps it up then. Thank you for watching and see you next time.